There's a kind of shrinking that no one tells you about. It doesn't show up overnight, it doesn't make noise. It begins slowly, like the silence that settles in the house after the children leave, or the stillness that lingers in a chair where someone used to sit. This shrinking happens in the body, yes, but it's not always seen. It's felt. In the effort it takes to rise from the armchair, in the hesitation before a step, in the quiet sigh when you realize the jar won't open again. Seijiki Hinohara, who lived beyond 100 years and spent his life caring for others, once said, "We age not when our years increase, but when our curiosity and movement decrease." That sentence holds a quiet truth, the kind you don't hear in clinics or read in medical leaflets, because the real clock of the body is not marked by birthdays or prescriptions. It's marked by movement, by the strength of your muscles, those quiet fibers that push blood through your heart, that hold you steady as you climb the stairs, that let you lift a pot to feed yourself or carry your groceries home. And yet, most people only notice their muscles when they're gone. You see, the body doesn't shout when muscle begins to fade, it whispers. A little more effort to stand, a little more wobble in your balance, a little more fear on the steps. This process has a name, sarcopenia, but names aren't what concern us here. What matters is that it begins silently after 50 and speeds up after 60. Not just affecting strength, but slowing your metabolism, increasing insulin resistance, even stealing clarity from your mind. It's not just the arms or legs that weaken, it's the systems that depend on them. Digestion, blood sugar, brain function, your very sense of independence. Dr. Peter Attia, a modern voice in longevity science, calls this the centenarian decathlon. It's the idea that if you want to still move freely at 90, stand from a chair without help, carry a grandchild, walk across a garden, you must begin training now, not with weights or races, but with purpose, with consistency, with the awareness that movement is more than exercise, it's preparation for freedom. But this is where many fall into the trap. They believe slowing down is inevitable, that it's just age. That after 60 or 70, it's normal to lose muscle, normal to stop climbing stairs, normal to stop trying. But what if that's not the truth? What if it's not aging that steals strength, but disuse? What if we've mistaken stillness for safety, and in doing so surrendered the very vitality that keeps us alive? Hinohara believed that movement wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. Muscles are the body's language of life, he might have said. When we stop moving, the conversation with our own vitality fades. So today we begin with this truth. You have not run out of time. Your muscles have not given up on you. They are waiting for attention, for intention, for small steps that say, I am still here. I still want to live well. This isn't a video about bodybuilding or diets. It's not about chasing youth. It's about returning to yourself, listening to your body's quiet voice, and learning, perhaps for the first time, that muscle is not about looking strong. It's about being free. Let's begin. Thinking muscle loss is just about strength. There's an old belief that muscles are only useful when you need to lift something. A heavy box, a stubborn door, a bag of groceries too full for one hand. But after 60, muscles become something else entirely. They become guardians, quiet protectors of your inner balance, your metabolism, your hormones, even your blood pressure. And yet, many still think of muscle as something cosmetic or optional, like strength is only about appearance, like aging means you no longer need it. But the body doesn't work that way. Not after 60, not after 70. After a certain point, every small decline in muscle is not just a physical loss, it's a signal. Muscles help regulate blood sugar. They help you manage stress. They keep inflammation in check. They stabilize your heartbeat. They protect your bones. And when you begin losing 1 to 2% of muscle per year, as quietly and steadily as leaves falling in autumn, you may not see the change in the mirror. But inside, the metabolism begins to slow. Fatigue sets in sooner. Sugar remains longer in the bloodstream. Blood pressure rises. Memory clouds. The body does not lie. It adapts to what it's given, or what it's no longer asked to do. Harvard and Mayo Clinic researchers have studied this process for years, and the numbers are sobering. Muscle loss triples the risk of falls and fractures. It increases hospitalizations. It delays recovery. And yet, when an older adult stumbles or feels dizzy or cannot recover from a cold, most say, it's just age. But it's not. It's the silent loss of a system that was once vibrant, once strong, and still can be in many ways. One way to listen to the body is through something deceptively simple: sitting and standing. There's a small test used by geriatric specialists, not in gyms or labs, but in quiet homes and clinics. You sit in a firm chair, cross your arms, and stand up and sit down 5 times. Not quickly, not forcefully, just steadily. If it takes more than 15 seconds, that's not just slowness. It's an early sign that the body is having trouble with what once came naturally. And while it may seem small, that 15 seconds is a message, not a punishment, not a judgment. Just a message from the body that says, I'm still here, but I need your attention. Because the truth is simple. You don't lose muscle when you age. You age when you lose muscle. One follows the other, like shadow follows sun. But the light can return. The process can shift. Not through extreme change, but through remembrance of who you were when you moved freely, of how it felt to rise without effort, to reach without hesitation. That person is still there, not gone, just waiting, just resting. And strength, even after years of silence, can still be called back. If you're finding strength in these words, imagine what a little more each week could bring. Subscribe, and let's keep rebuilding what age was never meant to take away. There are mornings when you wake up already tired. Even after a full night's sleep, the energy feels distant, the mind feels slower, the waistline thicker, and no one seems to explain why. You're eating the same way, moving about the same. But something inside has changed, and too often it's blamed on age, on the calendar, on inevitability. But the body deserves more credit than that. What's really happening, for many after 60, is a chain reaction, silent, slow, and often ignored. It begins in the muscles, not with pain, not with injury, just with absence. As muscle mass quietly decreases, something else quietly rises: insulin resistance. The body's ability to manage blood sugar begins to weaken. Glucose lingers longer after meals. Fatigue becomes more common. That heavy feeling after eating, that afternoon fog, that softness that gathers around the belly. It's not just food, it's not just time. It's the metabolic consequence of muscles being underused, unfed, and forgotten. And this isn't just theory. At Stanford and across the ocean in Oxford, researchers have uncovered something powerful. In older adults, the simple act of maintaining muscle, of keeping those fibers alive, can improve glucose control even more than medication. Not through grueling workouts or extreme diets, but through the quiet return to movement, the reawakening of the body's largest organ of energy regulation, the muscle. It surprises many to learn that resistance doesn't have to mean struggle, that progress doesn't always come through sweat and soreness. Even gentle, steady movements, done consistently, can reverse the spiral. The muscle doesn't judge the size of the effort, it only responds to the message, I still need you. There's a small ritual done before breakfast that speaks directly to this message. Not long, not complicated, just 5 minutes of slow, intentional movement, sitting and standing, pressing gently against a wall, awakening the legs, the arms, the back, not to exhaust, but to signal. Because before food enters the body, movement reminds the system, we're alive, we're working, be ready. Muscles in this way are like solar panels. They draw in energy, regulate its use, and power the rest of the system. But when they're folded in the dark, when the light of activity no longer reaches them, the rest of the body runs on low battery. It becomes harder to think clearly, to digest fully, to feel steady in the afternoon hours. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Just as solar panels regain their function in the sun, the muscles regain their strength when called upon. Gently, regularly, with presence, not for vanity, not for appearance, but for something much deeper, the return of vitality, not as a memory, but as a companion, quiet, steady, and still within reach. There's a quiet misunderstanding that lives in many kitchens, a plate that seems full, a belly that feels fed, and yet the body is still asking for something more, not more food, not more calories, but something deeper, something that builds, not just fills. After 60, the body doesn't just need to be fed, it needs to be rebuilt. And that rebuilding depends on one silent ally: protein. For much of life, the body knew exactly what to do with it. A boiled egg, a piece of fish, a handful of lentils. Muscles absorbed what they needed and carried on, but with time, something changes. The muscles become resistant, not in attitude, but in biology. They no longer respond as easily. Scientists call it anabolic resistance, a name that simply means after a certain age, it takes more intention to nourish the body well. And yet, many still believe they are eating enough. Breakfast is toast, lunch is soup, dinner perhaps has meat or beans, but the distribution is uneven, the quality inconsistent. And the body, despite being fed, stays undernourished where it matters most. Not in the stomach, but in the cells that support movement, balance, and strength. There is another layer too, often forgotten. As the years pass, digestion softens. The stomach produces less acid. Enzymes, once abundant, decline. And so even when protein arrives at the table, the body struggles to break it down. The effort becomes greater, the absorption weaker. It's not just about what's on the plate, it's about what reaches the muscles and what never does. But small adjustments can make a difference. Adding a little lemon juice or a few drops of bitters before a meal can gently awaken digestion. Spreading protein across all meals, rather than saving it for the evening, can help the body absorb and use it more efficiently. And combining sources, plant and animal, bean and egg, tofu and fish, can create a more complete message to the muscles. We are building again. Protein isn't just food, it's material. A kind of scaffolding the body leans on to repair, to grow, to stay upright when the world feels heavy. And after 60, you can't build a strong house with one big delivery a day. You need steady shipments. Morning, noon, and night. Thoughtfully chosen, gently prepared, lovingly received. When the balance is right, something begins to return. Not a dramatic change, not an overnight transformation, but a steadiness, a quiet resilience, a sense that your muscles are listening again, that they're no longer fading, that the house you live in, the body that carries your story, is still under construction, still worth tending, still capable of holding you strong through the seasons ahead. There's a reason so many people give up on exercise after a certain age, not because they don't care, not because they're lazy, but because the word exercise has been dressed in the wrong clothes. Loud gyms, complicated routines, sweat, noise. Machines that ask more than the body is ready to give. For someone who wakes up with joint stiffness or climbs stairs with effort, this image does not inspire, it intimidates. But strength was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be a rhythm, a way of living. And in the quiet corners of the world, in places like Okinawa and Nicoya, those gentle lands where people often live beyond 90 with grace, this rhythm is still alive. There, the elders do not train. They do not count repetitions or time themselves on treadmills. They move. They tend to their gardens. They carry food home. They bend, reach, walk, squat, lift, not for fitness but for life. This is what protects their muscles, not the intensity of motion but its consistency, the daily conversation between the body and its surroundings, the humble rituals that keep the legs awake, the arms useful, the back strong enough to rise from the ground with dignity. But in the modern world, many of these rituals have vanished. Meals are eaten sitting still. The arms move only from plate to mouth. The belly swells while the muscles rest. The body, left unused, begins to soften, not just on the outside, but in its function. Digestion slows, blood sugar climbs, balance falters, the foundation weakens, and yet, restoration does not require dramatic changes. Sometimes it begins with something as small as standing up every half hour. Not for long. Just enough to remind the legs they are still needed. A 10-minute walk after a meal, not for burning calories but for helping sugar find its way into the muscles where it belongs. Using stairs when possible, not as punishment, but as nature's resistance training. With each step, the body is reminded of its design, and that design includes strength. It is not about building muscle for show. It is about reclaiming the movements that give us freedom, to reach the shelf, to lift the basket, to kneel in the garden without fear, to dance perhaps in the kitchen when no one is watching. Because the truth is this: you don't need a gym, you need presence, you need rhythm, you need daily, loving rituals that say to your body, you matter, I haven't forgotten you. Your home can be your sanctuary, your stairs, your teacher, your body, your ally. And movement, when woven into the day like tea or prayer, becomes not a task, but a return to strength, a return to self. A quiet proof that vitality doesn't leave. It waits, and when invited, it walks beside you again. The muscles remember who you were. There are things the mind forgets with time. Names, dates, where the keys were left. But the muscles, those quiet, faithful fibers beneath the skin, they remember. They remember who you were before the pain, before the diagnosis, before the losses that left their weight, not just on your heart, but on your body. Dr. Ig. Shigeaki Hinohara believed that purpose is what keeps the body young, not a purpose written in books or shouted from stages, but one felt in the bones. A reason to move even when the world has grown quieter, a reason to open the curtains, to stand up again, to walk, not for distance but for meaning. Because when movement is rooted in purpose, it no longer feels like effort, it becomes devotion, a way to care for the self that still lives within, quietly waiting. Dr. Peter Attia, in his vision of aging well, speaks of training for your future self. Not for competition, not for speed, but for independence, for the ability to stand from a chair without help, to lift a bag of oranges, to walk along a garden path at 80 or 90 and feel steady, strong, safe. Every small movement you make today is a promise to that future self, an act of love that says, I haven't forgotten you, because muscle at this stage of life is not about vanity, it is survival. It is the cushion between you and the floor, the grip that steadies your spoon, the strength that steadies your breath. It is the quiet barrier between dependence and freedom, and it is never too late to strengthen it, not with force, but with attention. Your muscles are not just flesh, they are memory. They hold the echo of every step you've taken, every child you carried, every load you bore for someone else. They remember the dancing, the lifting, the reaching, the rebuilding after every fall. They remember who you were, and they can help you become that person again. And if this kind of strength matters to you, the kind that keeps you steady, clear, and free, subscribe to the channel. Let's grow older with intention, not just with time. Aging doesn't erase strength. It only asks if you're willing to practice it again, slowly, gently, with care, with the respect your body deserves. And if you are willing, just willing, the muscles will respond, because they never stopped listening. They never stopped waiting. Muscles don't retire, they wait for your decision to use them, for your courage to return, for the quiet moment when you say, not to impress, not to perform, but to live. I am still here, and I am not done.